So, welcome everybody to our lovely midweek meditation. I'm Wendy. If I haven't met you before or you're watching this on the recording for the first time, I am in Redwood City, California on historic Lamshan land. They were part of the Ohlone tribe. And today's meditation is going to be a mindfulness meditation, weaving in a little bit of the theme of patience. So I've noticed not the great levels of patience that I'd like to have in myself. I know I hear people talking about it in my practice, and so it's good to pay a little bit of attention to patience. It also I had an eye on patience, and when I was looking at this week's Torah portion, it patience showed up for me to be looking at it through the lens of patience. Um, we are in a transition time. If I know not everybody here is from the United States, but we are certainly in a transition time in the United States, and transitions are hard. I think about the transition time in the birthing process. It's the hardest time. So when you're leaving something and you're going to something else, it's really a challenging time. It is challenging for people not wanting to let go of the new. It's challenging because the new isn't here yet. We haven't arrived in the new yet. There may still be, more challenges till we get there. So it's a great time to look at patience. We're also many, many months into this pandemic, and I don't think anybody thought it would unfold the way that it did, take this long, and be as disruptive and cataclysmic in terms of the number of loss of life. So we have that, like, we will come out of this, and there will be a time where we won't be so overwhelmed by the loss and the grief, and we will emerge into a different time, but we have to be patient because that time is not yet here. Some of you may have already received your first vaccine. So we are seeing some movement there. And I think that the place sometimes that's hardest to be patient is with ourselves. If we're not our best, if we're, everybody talks about, just being hypersensitive and more critical and more judgmental and less patient. And, we're navigating uncharted territory that's really challenging. And so to have patience with yourself, to start there first, and then to also be able to be patient with others. So this week's Torah portion is Va'era. And it's also about, for me, at least when I was looking at it, the patience to listen and the patience to hear. So Yah, God, tells Moses it's time to liberate the Israelites, and please go to the people and say, I will bring you out from under your burdens. And the word for burdens is sivlat. And in Hebrew, that's very similar to the Hebrew, one of the words that we use for patience, which is savlanut. So this sense of our burdens, how do we be patient with our burdens? There is a Jewish spiritual practice, which more and more people are aware of, but many people are not, called Musar, a couple 100-year-old, 300-year-old practice of Jewish ethical or Jewish soul work, where you look at a trait at a time and you say, how is this trait showing up in my life? And the idea is that if we can look at traits and see where we are on the spectrum, that gives us the opportunity to change and develop and notice. We bring something into our awareness. And so in Musar, you look at one trait at a time, or midah in Hebrew, midot plural, and patience is one of those midot that we look at. And in Musar, the idea is that living on the ends of the poles of a trait is unhealthy, not skillful, but living in the balanced center is where we want to go. So if you look at a trait like humility, if I am not humble at all, I'm full of myself. I have a lot of hubris. I don't think that other people have anything to offer. But if I'm on the other side of that, I have too much humility. I don't feel that my voice is important. I let people make decisions for me that are not necessarily in my best interest, or I give over my voice. So we see that neither end of that spectrum is a good place to be, but the balanced place, the place of I recognize my voice, I recognize the voice of others, that we all have an I will take up the right amount of space for myself and my voice, and I will also offer you the right amount of space. And so that if we look at the trait of patience, what is too much patience? That one we never really think about, but it's there. And what is too little patience? I think we understand that what is too little patience. I want it done now. I'm impulsive. Make this feel better now. Let me, I don't care what you say. I'm going to go do it, barreling through. And too much patience is the acceptance of something that we really need to move through, or we actually let go of our drive and our desire. We've become tolerant of that which is actually not good for us. And so there are some commentaries about how that's the reason why God decided, okay, it's time for me to send the messenger Moses to liberate the Israelites, because they've actually gotten used to being enslaved. They have accepted their burdens. They're not pushing against them anymore. And if I leave them here, they will become even more and more accepting of that. Interesting to think about, because we don't think about that side of patience, but that we can enslave ourselves. And this is actually in like 12-step recovery, there's this orientation of we build up a tolerance, and actually just in addiction, in the understanding of addiction, in general, that we build up a tolerance. Okay, I'm going to do this. Oh, well, that doesn't quite do it anymore, so I'm going to do a little bit more. That doesn't quite do it anymore, I'm going to do it a little bit more. And while most of us may not have a drug addiction or alcohol addiction, we have addiction to other things. We have addictions to worry. We have addictions to maybe doing things that are not in our best interest. I am one of those people that believes that we all have addictions. And, it's anything that we do, even though we know it's not good for us, but we keep doing it. That's how I see addiction. So too much of that, too much of that leaves us in a place where we're not growing and we're not shedding the things that we need to shed. So when we learn to create a place to listen to what's really going on in our hearts, that's when we can realize if we've actually become too patient. Or another way to say that is we've become tolerant of something. What is it that we're holding on to? Either it's a grumbling, I wish this, person would stop doing this, or it's I've just resigned myself that I'm never going to be X. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to exercise. Like we get into that stuck mode. And so that's also part of maybe being too patient or being too tolerant. So I thought with today's meditation, we could focus on creating the spaciousness that mindfulness gives us to see actually what's in our thoughts. What are we continuing to ruminate over so that we can liberate ourselves from it? That which kind of trips us up, which we keep seeing, is something that we've actually become tolerant to. We let it in. And so we want to let that go. We're overly patient with that is another way to look at it. And um, the the first step in that is realizing what it is that we're continuing to habituate ourselves with. And we know about from neurology, we know that we have actually the brain is wired for addiction. The brain is wired to repeat and repeat because it's easier than trying to do something new. So if we get into a certain way of being, it's much easier. We have those neural connections. That's why we have to work really hard when we want to change patterns. At the beginning of the secular year, the beginning of the Jewish year is times when people are like, I'm going to go exercise, I'm going to eat healthier. And if we grab those patterns and we do them for a while, then we create different neural connections. But it takes a while. And again, we have to be patient with ourselves as we're creating those neural networks. And when we aren't patient, we also can't listen because we already have a conversation going on, or we think we know what the person is saying or what's being said to us. And this shows up in this week's Torah portion, the sense of the Israelites not being able to hear Moses saying, I'm going to help deliver you. And they're like, what are you talking about? Because they had gotten so overly patient or so habituated to the sense they couldn't really hear what he was saying and they were disagreeing with him. Also, Moses has a sense of his own, I'm not the right guy for the job. So multiple times in this portion, God says to him, you're going to do this. And he's like, what, me? I'm not the right person. Like I'm telling myself a story that I have the problems with my speech, which gets translated and maybe is that he had a speech impediment. And it's also about how he feels about himself. I'm not able to speak so that people can listen. He literally says that I won't be able to be the person who speaks so that Pharaoh can listen. And in fact, Pharaoh doesn't listen, another opportunity to not listen because Pharaoh is so hubristic about who he is. He's like, I don't need to listen to this guy. What's he going to do to me? And then the plagues start. So a lot woven into this theme, and a reminder that listening is a core piece of the Jewish liturgy with the Shema. It's inviting us to listen, to hear. What does it mean to really listen and really hear? What does it mean to listen to that inner still small voice? What does it mean to listen to what's coming into us, a different message that may be coming to us? And so those are all opportunities for us to explore today. I'm going to start with a guiding us to our breath, and then into mindfulness meditation to notice our thoughts and see what's arising and to not be attached to them. And then if I'll switch halfway through to inviting us to listen to sounds both inside of us, maybe in your head, in whatever that is, the sounds that you're hearing, or externally. And if you want to stay with the regular mindfulness meditation, please do. If you're finding it very fruitful and you'd like a longer time to sit, we do have about 25 minutes or so today to sit. And there's always the invitation to do what feels right and to never force anything. And I thought the chant to go in should be wordless, to invite us into that open place where we can really be open to hearing instead of having words. It's the space to open up and see then what arises. So I'll do a wordless melody or niggun, and that'll be our time together. So my microphone was acting up the past few days, so I'm not using it. So sorry if you hear a little bit of paper rustling. That happens a little bit more when I use my computer's microphone. But get yourself into a comfortable place, and we'll start our time meditating after the chant?
Mm.
Question? I thought I heard somebody. Okay. Yai dai 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 dai. 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 Take a nice breath in and let it go. Another deep breath in, wide into the ribs, deep down into the belly. And as you exhale, just let it go. Returning to your own natural breath rhythm of breathing in and breathing out. Noticing the body as the breath moves in and out. When we inhale, chest lifting up and opening and expanding. And as we exhale, chest softening. As we inhale, the belly may expand, shoulders may go up. And as we exhale, shoulders may soften down, belly may come and soften. Whatever you're noticing about how it feels to receive and give over the breath. Breathing in oxygen, cool air, breathing out carbon dioxide, warmed air. Each breath connecting you with the rest of creation, your in breath, the out breath of the rest of creation, your out breath, the in breath to creation. Breathing in, feeling the connection of the spirit that infuses all life, and breathing out, being part of the flow of that spirit moving through you and among all that is. Noticing the sits bones rooted in the chair, anywhere that the body feels pressure, letting all those sensations, maybe at the low back or on the bottom of your feet, anywhere where your one body piece is touching another, maybe hands on legs or hands crossed. Letting in the fullness of your experience in this moment, be part of your awareness. Not having to name or be attached, but just noticing and imagining with each successive breath, we're slowly quieting the mind like a pebble descending down into water, letting go, quieting and slowing down. And in this space, we notice what arises in the mind, thoughts, awarenesses, trying to let them pass through us without an attachment. Just noticing what is arising in the mind. May need a little help letting go of something that feels a little sticky. You can try using the breath to imagine letting that thought or awareness float away on the next out breath. And any time that you notice that you've gotten trapped into a longer line of thinking, at the moment that you become aware of it, returning to the breath, breathing in and breathing out very slowly, letting go of the attachment to that thread and creating some open, spacious possibility to see what else will arise in your mind. And we'll spend the next 7 or 8 minutes seeing what's arising, letting it come into fullness, and let it go as best as we can. Feel free to stay with this mindfulness meditation. And also, if strong emotions are coming up, like grief and sadness, welcome it and also see that it comes and goes. The second part of the meditation, if you'd like to try it out, is mindfulness with sound. To notice what you're hearing without trying to name it or identify it or interpret it. Just notice what you're hearing. And it could be an inner noise, especially many of us have tinnitus. And when we sit quietly is when it's really aware and apparent. It may be a sound outside or in the room that you're in. And I invite you to not be looking for the next sound, but to simply be patiently waiting to see what will arise. And it may be nothing, it may be a tremendous amount of quiet. So, noticing sounds as they arise, trying not to be attached to them or to put any judgment around them. Noticing any other sounds that you hear arising. Giving attention to both inner noise and outer noise for the next 8 minutes. So coming back with a nice big breath in, filling up the lungs and exhaling and letting it go. Taking as much time as you need to bring yourself back, opening your eyes, moving your body. Um, I wanted to say that maybe it wasn't clear to me until I did this meditation with you all today that um, I think meditating is actually the best way to cultivate patience. So I love Musar. I'm a student of Musar. I teach Musar. But just sitting and seeing how we can be is such a wonderful way to cultivate the practice of patience in ourselves and to bring that into our being in the world more. And so uh, I I wish you all, as we leave our time together, opportunities to cultivate patience. Um, in fact, one of the ways that we can look at something that is challenging for us is, hey, it's an opportunity to cultivate a little patience. Let me sit and just follow my breath for a minute or two. As we leave those in the recording and on the live stream, um, reminding all of you to be kind to yourself, to see yourself as made in the image of the divine that you are, that we all are. And so we say our closing, B'Tselem Yah, you are made in the image of the divine of Yah, B'Tselem Yah.